Lightroom Classic is just one of those programs that no matter how long you've been using it, there's always new stuff to learn, new ways to use it. Obviously it's updated a lot as well, but today we're going to talk about 3 ways you can use Lightroom Classic, 3 things you can do in it that you might not know about. It's Tutorial Tuesday. Welcome back to Tutorial Tuesday, where each and every Tuesday, we bring you a brand new fresh photography tutorial. This week, we're diving into Lightroom Classic, as we do every now and then. And we're gonna look at 3 different things you can do with it, 3 different ways you can use it that you might not already know about. We don't need to go on about this intro. We don't need to elongate it unnecessarily. Let's dive in. So the first one I wanna show you, you've got a portrait here of me, in this room, in fact, and I want to show you how we can use masks to dodge and burn very quickly and easily on a portrait like this. So obviously the light is over to the left when we look at the image like this, so my right when I was sitting there, but the left of the image. Let's go ahead and just add in 2 masks. So we go ahead, we'll go create new mask, let's go radial gradient. I'm going to draw a nice big radial gradient across this side roughly of my face, which is going to be the slightly darker side. We want to accentuate that shadow. So we could do that. We could just bring the exposure down, but it's going to affect the background as well. So what we want to do is right click on this new mask we've just made, intersect mask with select subject. That's going to apply that radial mask that I just drew to only the subject. So everywhere that it intersects with the subject, and you can see it's applied it really well. If we wanted to do the opposite, we could just untick this invert checkbox. Now it's only affecting behind me. If I tick that back on, we can now bring that exposure down and it's only going to affect my face and not the background. We could go and add another mask. Let's draw one over the other side like that. Right click, intersect mask with select subject. Now we can just bring the exposure up on that side. And there you see a really quick and easy way to just affect our portrait in this case, but you could do this with anything by darkening things, lightening things, but essentially using that intersect mask with. Such a powerful tool to use and to check out. The next tip I want to show you involves the tone curve. Now we've talked about this in the past. It can be a really interesting tool and a lot of people will just add an S curve. So bringing down the shadows, bringing up the highlights, adds a bit of contrast, looks fantastic. Now, obviously, like I said before, a very easy thing to do with the tone curve is just to add an S curve. That's where we add a point in the shadows and just bring that down, add a point in the highlights up here and bring that up. This photo probably doesn't need any additional contrast like that. But what we can do is affect things in a slightly more specific and accurate way. All we have to do is actually come up to this point here, click that, and now we can come to any point in the photo and you can see as I mouse over all these different points, on the tone curve itself over here, you can see the point on the line is moving depending on where I actually put this in the photo. So we are basically specifically targeting different areas of the photo. Let's say I want to brighten up these rocks just a little bit. I can actually click on one of these darker areas, like let's say on here. I can click and I can drag to actually bring that up on that part of the tone curve. Alternatively, if I press Ctrl Z to take that back, I can actually click that, click on a point here, and it's actually going to add a point on the tone curve, which I can then go in and manually move myself, which is nice and easy. I can do that again. Let's click here. Let's go for a brighter area. Let's go somewhere like, here. We've added a point there, and let's go for one of these really bright areas. So something like this, which we might want to bring down a little bit. We can go in, we can now move this up a little bit. We might want to bring that point down a little bit. And look at that. Look at how much more detail we've brought out in the sky, in the rocks. You know, we've kind of moved the shadows up, the highlights down, but we've done it by being much more specific. So there's kind of 2 ways of doing it. You can either add the point by being very specific about the point of the image you want to target, or you can add the point and drag while on the image. Really powerful, really useful way of using the tone curve, and it can be a really useful thing for certain types of images. The third tip I want to show you is how you can affect luminance values, so the brightness of different things based on color. And this is something we can do. Let's scroll down here to the hue, saturation, and luminance tab. Now we're going to use this photo. This was taken on the Hasselblad X2D, a nice sort of landscape photo. I've not really done any editing to this at all. So I would probably, before I even started, just bring those highlights down, maybe the shadows up, maybe the contrast a little bit, but let's just scroll straight to that hue, saturation and luminance tab. Let's go to luminance here, and we can actually start affecting the brightness of certain colors. So let's go for orange as an example. If we bring that down, you can see we're actually affecting this area in the middle here quite nicely. We can bring in some detail, or we could up it for more of a glow kind of feel. Same with the yellow. If we bring that down too far, you can see it starts to break apart, but if we bring it down a little bit, it starts to help with, you know, exactly what's going on there. Again, we can bring that up for more of a glow. If you look at the blue, we can darken those clouds by actually bringing that down. Other things like purple, you might not have so much in that photo, but in this one, there is a bit in the clouds. Again, that darkens the clouds quite nicely. You can also use this in conjunction with the saturation. So the blue, for example, I've brought all the way down there. Let's reset that orange as well. Let's go to saturation and bring that blue down. You can see that now makes kind of a dark gray sky. And that can be really interesting. Let's look at that on another photo as well. Let's look at it with this photo. So you can see we've got the photo of the pier here, we've got the blue sky. We can come into the luminance tab here and just bring that blue right down. Look how much that adds to the photo. Look how much that affects that sky. And if you want to use it in conjunction with the saturation, you bring that blue down as well. You get a really interesting look to that photo. You could then actually add that in as well with something like a linear gradient mask, which you bring down like this, and just maybe bring down the exposure or bring up the dehaze, and look at that. Look at how different that is from where we were just a few seconds ago. And that luminance value on the actual hue, saturation and luminance tab is so useful for this kind of stuff. And again, like I say, you can use it in conjunction with the saturation for some really interesting results. So there's 3 ways you can affect your photos. Most of that is actually to do with exposure, which is interesting, or the overall look of the exposure of the photo, but that's 3 ways that you can affect that. Those are all kind of new techniques that I've started using over the last few months that I now use an awful lot in my photos. But I'd love to hear if there's anything else that you think is slightly different to what most people use, that you use all the time. Maybe you've developed your own technique. I'd love to hear down in the comments. Let me know if there's anything like that. Otherwise, of course, you can check out a list of all the stuff we use to make these videos down in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe because there's new content all the time. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Until then, though, as always, thanks for watching. Thank you.